New session. Hey, Nathan, we are live. Unfortunately, people are now can only see me and not Congressman Curtis or you. But today is a big day. You can now start applying for the PPP loan. And I know there's been some confusion around how to apply for that. Nathan, will you educate us on how to do that?
Absolutely. A couple of things. First and foremost, I've never seen it before. Typically, there's a warm-up act, right? This is the opposite, right? We had April Fools the other day. I've definitely not. I don't consider Congressman Curtis a warm-up act, but I do consider the topic that you've asked me to just discuss real briefly one that I'm sure is of great importance to everybody. And really, there's a couple of things before we get into the PPP. I would first share that there's, Congressman mentioned reach out to your financial institution, and I would encourage everybody, every business owner, as well as consumer, to do that for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, because of what's going on, there's a lot of help, and it can come in several different forms. First and foremost, with regard to your business loans, if you'll reach out, it's common practice now, I believe, for financial institutions to grant deferrals. So that's an easy thing that can occur, whether that has to do with your commercial building loans or lines of credit or whatever. A deferment for 30, 60, 90 days granted right now is happening daily. So that's one option, even on your consumer side with regard to mortgage and vehicle loans and everything else. So that's the first thing that can be done. With regard to financial assistance, you mentioned the PPP. There's actually three different options for those businesses based here in Utah. The first is actually a bridge loan through the state. It's actually through GoEd. You can go and go to utah.gov and look for this information. Available to businesses of 50 employees or less, 5,000 to 20,000 loan amounts, not to exceed 3 months of business operating expenses, 0% interest, up to 60-month term, 12 months deferred payments. There's 11 million the state's setting aside, and I think GoEd's setting aside some additional funds. So that's one option to look for. And again, you can go to either GoEd or this utah.gov to look for that. There's another loan, EIDL, that's available now through the SBA. So you apply directly through the SBA.
Nathan, sorry to interrupt. For those of you that are interested, in the chat window, I just put a link to the GoEd Small Business Bridge Loan Program in the chat window. So for that one, there's the link. Sorry, Nathan, keep going.
Nope, you're good. So again, the second one is EIDL, and that you apply directly through the SBA, and that provides small businesses with working capital loans up to $2 million. And, of course, they have different requirements there. The third option that you mentioned is the PPP, and that's a little different in that that's part of that $349 billion that's been set aside, and it's been set aside by the Treasury to be used through the SBA, but offered through financial institutions. And because of that, they came out initially with some information about it and then said it would be available April 3rd. What you're going to find is most financial institutions will not be ready to take application today. Some may, but because it went from the federal government to Treasury to the SBA to financial institutions, there's still calls being had today about how to administer this. And that's the issue that everyone's going to be dealing with. Now, everyone's in the same boat. So if you look at Chase or at Wells Fargo, most of them are saying they will not be ready to take application today. Some will. It really just depends. I think Zions has said they expect to have their application loaded and available later today. We're hoping to do the same thing. And so again, check with whoever it is you use as your financial partner and work with them to identify when that's going to be available. If not today, it should be Monday or the first part of next week. And what that is really is it's a loan that has a couple of different elements to it. The maximum loan amount is 2.5 times your monthly payroll costs. You can also include in that some expense for things like rent or interest expense, and a few other things. Loan payments will be deferred for the first 6 months. There is a forgivable amount. So you'll be asked to, after you've been granted the loan, the financial institution will ask you to go back and verify that you use the funds for the next couple of months as payroll to take care of the employees, and that you have the same amount of employees or more than you had when you were granted the funds. And if that's the case, then that amount can be forgiven, and again, will not be required to be repaid. There's no personal guarantees that are required for this. There's no collateral required. There's no SBA borrower fee. There's no prepayment penalty. And again, it is 100% guaranteed by the SBA. So with that, a lot, if not all, but majority probably of financial institutions that offer SBA loans will be able to administer this product as well. So again, most of the financial institutions that you're working with should be able to assist and help you with that. You had a question, Logan?
The application, where can they find Mountain America Credit Union's application for this?
It will be, yeah, it will be online. If you go, and again, it depends on the institution. For us, as you go to our website, we have a COVID link right off the homepage. When you link to that, it will take you to a section that has our information, and the application will be right there. You'll be able to, once it's posted, you'll be able to apply through there. There will be DocuSign and other tools, resources we'll use to make it so you can do it all online and be able to submit it, and then go from there. And then it goes into a queue for us where we submit that to the SBA, wait for approval through the SBA, and then the funds will be dispersed. It's a new program, it's a new loan type, so we're sitting back waiting for that information from the SBA. There's the application piece, right, that we have to have from them. And then not only do you have to have the application piece, but then we have to know from them not only application, but the required guidelines for the note. So we can't just create a new note and have that go out. We've got to have the requirements from them on that as well. So these are a couple of things that financial institutions are waiting on from the SBA before they can launch the process. The last thing we want to do is put an application out there, have everybody apply, and then have to readjust it all. We put the app out initially that the SBA provided last night, and within a couple of hours, we had 109 applications, and then the SBA changed the application, right? So for that reason, I think most financial institutions are just taking hey, we're going to wait until we have final word from the SBA, and then at that point, most institutions will be emailing out to their business members, hey, it's available. It's on our site. You can go and access it. So I can't say that everybody is. I know we are. I assume others are doing the same thing, where they will reach out to every business member that they have an email for, and they will send that information out to say, hey, here's the link. It's available. Go ahead and access it, or they'll send them where to go to do so.
Thank you, Nathan. How long are they anticipating between application and deploying the funds?
If I had that crystal ball, I could tell you all kinds of things, Logan, but unfortunately, we don't know. We really don't, because you're waiting on a couple of things. First, the financial institution, of course, will have to take and process and take the information from the borrower and then submit to the SBA, and then it's out of their hands. They're totally at the mercy of the SBA to come back with an approval. Because if they don't get an approval before they disperse funds, then obviously there's no guarantee in place and everything else. So it's really, we don't know. Those are some of the things we're hoping to find out, but I think they may tell us one thing, and then as the applications flood in, it may completely change. So not sure. I wish I had better answers. If it were, the financial institution only making that decision, it'd be a lot easier for us to say, well, here's what we've done. And again, for Mountain America, we've actually repurposed a whole bunch of employees from other areas over to the SBA area in anticipation of these applications coming in. And we're doing that to try and work through what we get as quickly as possible. But then once it gets submitted to the SBA, we don't know.
Nathan, have you ever been asked so many questions that you didn't know the answer to because things were moving so fast in your career? This is crazy.
You know what's interesting, Logan, is I went into this role at the end of 2008. So
Oh, wow.
9, 10, and 11, when everything went crazy then, it was the same kind of thing going through and really trying to figure out how to do things a different way. And that's really where we're at, just as was mentioned earlier, is we're all being forced to look at things in a very different way. And I agree and concur with what the Congressman said. I think we're going to come out of this with a very different way of doing things, a different perspective on how things can be done as opposed to how things were being done. And, you know, I think in many ways we'll come out ahead.
I got one question from Jeremy. One of the owners of Nena & Co. It says, Nathan, do we know if this is a first come, first serve? Will all of the funds be available, get eaten up by people that apply at their banks this morning? Hey, I have an account at MACU and one with Chase. Do I need to apply with whoever posts the app first?
Good question. As they come in, it probably depends on how the institution's doing it. As we will get them, the applications coming in, we'll be processing them as quickly as possible and then submitting that to the SBA. How the SBA will prioritize financial institution versus financial institution, I have no idea. So that really, it would be too hard to say, unfortunately. The $349 billion, I've heard a couple of things. Now, the Congressman mentioned that, you know, hey, they're going to have to wait and see. Mnuchin came on and said, hey, if we need more funds, we'll approve more funds, right? I don't know what that means. I don't know how much will be available. I don't know how fast this is going to go. So we'll have to see. Obviously, I would always recommend that, hey, the sooner you're able to apply, the better you are. But it doesn't mean that the SBA is not going to prioritize things differently or do it a certain way. So who knows? I would tell you that for us, and I would assume most financial institutions will look at it this way, we're going to ensure that as things come in, once the SBA has their process in place, we're going to turn those things around as quickly as we can, and then it'll be in the SBA's hands to approve. And so I would assume that Zions and Wells and Chase and everybody else will be doing the same thing. That they're going to try and have as many resources as possible available to take those applications, turn them and get them submitted as fast as possible. So at that point, you know, again, we'll wait and see what occurs. I would tell you that, yeah, it's probably in your best interest to apply as soon as possible. And, you know, the thing is even with those two possibilities, the one of the EIDL applying to the SBA and the PPP, those are two different options. You could apply for both, but you can't have both at the same time. So if you were to get EIDL and then later get approved for PPP, you'd have to roll in your loan from the EIDL to the PPP. So you can't do both. But yeah, Jeremy, I'd say definitely it's in your best interest to get your information in as soon as you're able. And then at that point in time, you know, I don't know how they'll be prioritized through the SBA.
Any other questions for Nathan before we let him go? Again, in the window, in the chat window, I put in a link to the Utah EOD one that you talked about, and then I also put in a link to the Mountain America Credit Union /updates, where you can find all the information about the coronavirus on Mountain America Credit Union in all of these applications. Nathan, thank you so much. I know you are probably crazy busy these days. We are super grateful for your partnership as one of our title sponsors and partners here at Truss. And then also thank you for your wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us this morning. Nathan, anything else you want to say in closing before we wrap this up?
No, I'll probably just reiterate real quickly what I said earlier. Whoever it is you bank with, it just would be in your best interest to reach out as soon as possible. Look at what options are available. Look at the ability to have deferrals. Look at their offering with PPP and other things to help make sure that you're getting on top of things and not waiting until things become worse. That's probably the biggest advice that I could get is just work closely with your banker and make sure that you know what's available and that you're taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there to put you in the best position moving forward, so that when things do change, you're able to move forward quickly.
Thank you so much, Nathan. We're so grateful for your advice and for your support and partnership with us at Truss. Again, just in recap, Nathan, there's three different things out there. There's one through the EOD of Utah that is a bridge loan. I think it's between 0 and 20 or 25,000. Now, when I first saw that website, I think the deadline may have been today. And so if that is something that you're interested in, please go and check that out today. There is then the PPP one with payroll. That's the one that you do through the financial institutions. That's the one that Nathan's been talking about the most. And then there is the one through the SBA disaster loan. I've learned way more about that than I ever wanted to know. I guess it was originally made for farmers and agriculture, that if they had a 3 to 6 month drought, they could get a disaster loan to help them through that. Well, some of us have had a drought to our businesses, and so they've allowed that to be applicable for those that are impacted with revenue through the coronavirus. So those are your three options. Again, in closing, thank you to Congressman Curtis. Thank you to Nathan Anderson with Mountain America Credit Union. Next Tuesday, April 7th at 2 p.m., we will be having roundtables for you guys to get into small groups and discuss how are you keeping up your employee morale during this crazy time, and how are you strategically planning.
You.com or ask a service representative for assistance.
If you want to join us right now, I think I'm going to. There we go. Sorry about that. And so you're going to get an invitation for that for April 7th. Then again, on April 10th, we will have Ryan Frazier in a similar format to today, discussing the legislative impacts on employers. And there are lots of new different employee laws that are where if a family member has coronavirus, you have to pay them a certain amount, even if they don't work. So we really want to make sure that you are protected, your employees are protected, and you are knowledgeable in making decisions. Ryan will answer all of your employee law questions on April 10th. And then on April 17th, we're going to have a virtual Truss lunch. It's going to be at noon. We're going to have you come in. We're going to assign you tables just like we always do. And we're going to break you up into those small groups for you to have strategic discussions. Now, we are going to spend the budget that we would have spent at the restaurant, buy gift cards from our Trust restaurant owners, and send them to you. We ask you to use this gift card to give it to somebody in need, or use it at a local restaurant and leave a generous tip. Thank you so much for evolving with us. We had never hosted a virtual event. I think in the last 2 weeks, we've now done 8. If there's somebody that you want to chat with, if there's somebody else that you want to hear from, let us know and we will set that up. We are here to connect you during a time of quarantine. And so thank you so much for your continual support. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Thank you so much for your time. And again, a big thank you to our sponsor, Mountain America Credit Union, and Nathan Anderson for joining us today. And a big thank you to all of our other sponsors, Snowbird, EY, Mountain America Credit Union, and Alexander's Printing. And lastly, a big thank you to Congressman Curtis. Thank you guys, and have a happy Friday.